I'll call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Chair Betsy McKenna.
Here.
Vice Chair Mark Bowling.
Here.
Secretary Treasurer Heather Columbus-Castinas.
Here.
Commissioner David Gardella.
Here.
Commissioner David Knighton.
Here.
Attorney Jeff Alvinson.
Here.
Fire Chief Jeff Davidson.
Here.
Finance Director Aaron Brooks. Here. Division Chief Louis Stoneberg.
Here.
Division Chief Alex Straub.
Here.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not to the special meeting.
I'd like to give an opportunity to the people who wanted to make comments on non-agenda items. And I will start with Mike Burke, who has 3 minutes and then an additional 3 from someone over Gary.
My wife.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike Burton, and I come to you before you from 2 perspectives. First, I'm a resident of the fire district since 2017, and I'm concerned about the conditions within the fire district. Second, I've served 46 years in a career of fire service, with over 20 of those being as a fire chief at 4 agencies, including 4+ years of service in this fire district from 2017 to 2022. I share this only to demonstrate that I have a fairly robust operating knowledge of the district. After attempting to assist Chief Davidson with a smooth transition upon my retirement and his assumption of duties, I made myself available to Davidson as he saw fit. Initially, he reached out a few times, and I tried to offer him some historical perspectives that would benefit him. When I was no longer able to affirm where Davidson was going with the district, and I offered an opposing view, it became clear to me that he was only interested in affirmation. The contact ceased, and we have not communicated in over 2 years, as I am unable to be the loyalist that he sought. Upon arrival, it seemed to me that Davidson was keenly interested in being liked and in developing a cadre of loyalists that would serve that affirming need he has. Rather than trying his best to lead, he may have compromised himself. As I have had a career-long commitment to professional development and ensuring people were ready to assume greater responsibilities, it concerned me greatly when Davidson modified promotional standards and prerequisites to support those loyal to him. Unless things have changed since I left, neither Lou Stoneberg nor Pat Schwab met the preparation and experience standards to be chief officers. In their cases, they not only filled chief officer positions, but had positions created for them that had not previously existed. In one other case, an individual was unwisely promoted to another newly created chief officer position and then resigned. I urge this commission to take a deeper dive into those actions, as you may find evidence of cronyism and a lack of due diligence regarding background investigations. Creating these positions and lowering the requirements is an insult to those who did the required work to be eligible, at times with great personal sacrifice. My time leading the fire district was not one that was ideal. It included a number of elements that were far less than ideal. It came on the heels of the labor organization dissolving and reinventing itself and working a significant period without a collective bargaining agreement. The prior referendum to alleviate the funding issues had been overturned by the court. My tenure also included the period containing COVID-19, which placed huge demands and stresses on all within the district. Despite these conditions, nobody was terminated during my 4+ years. Only one person was demoted, and that was during their probationary period. I am alarmed at the number of people within the district that have been terminated, demoted, or coerced into resigning in lieu of termination. While I'm not able to confirm it, Davidson's tenure has likely brought on more negative employment actions than the past three chiefs combined, serving from 2010 through 2022. And that should cause you concern. I've reviewed the report from Mr. Collins and appreciate his level of detail. I'm very familiar that allegations from charging parties can be high on allegations and low on substance. However, the amount of concern by the workforce and the judgment and leadership gaps that Davidson has exhibited can't be overlooked. While time does not permit me to comment on all of the aspects of Mr. Collins' report, I must speak to the comments regarding District Administrator Kim Hampton. Davidson's distrust of Ms. Hampton is severely misplaced. She likely does not fit into Davidson's desire to have loyalists surrounding him, and she will speak the truth and put the needs of the district and those within the district first. Over my tenure as a fire chief in 4 other agencies, I've never worked with an admin staff member more honest, more trustworthy, and more capable than Kim Hampton. In a similar matter, Assistant Chief Dave Carpetez is not the problem, and I urge you to bring him back to work immediately. Having him out of position for this long is hard to fathom, and it appears his alleged defense is for trying to hold an underqualified Davidson loyalist accountable. I'm confident there were demonstrable service gaps related to back-to-back hurricanes, with the district's #2 officer being sidelined. Davidson and union leadership performed admirably in gaining support for the most recent referendum, as that was an arduous task and they deserve credit for it. However, in Davidson's own words, in public meetings in this very space, said the referendum was to support long overdue infrastructure issues. Despite this pledge, it appears to this taxpayer that Davidson is spending freely and creating new positions to support his loyalist. I urge the commission to take a careful look at all of the new positions that were created and evaluate for yourself if they were necessary. I've sat quietly since my retirement, and I've had very little contact with district members over the time, with most of them being incidental. I've not opined on what I see as the misadventures of Chief Davidson to avoid the perception of sour grapes. It's far from it. I tried my best to make him successful and to be aware of organizational and community issues. However, with what I've now seen within the public records arena, I feel compelled to speak out and raise my concerns. I'm enjoying retirement very much, and to be clear, I am not looking to come back to work as a fire chief. Let me be abundantly clear on that. However, if I can assist you in moving forward, I'd be happy to do it. You have a tough decision to make that impacts not only the good men and women of the fire district, but the communities that the district protects. Anecdotally, the image and reputation of this district is greatly suffering within the fire service community. 10 more seconds, if I could, please. Thank you, I appreciate it. Leading is never easy, and it's often lonely. I urge the commission to demonstrate true leadership and not that which is easy or without discomfort. You clearly have the prerogative to defer any action and wait and see how things shake out. However, you should approach this inaction with the awareness that this will be like watching a slow motion crash for which there will be continued damage and injury. And you will have to acknowledge that you had the opportunity to avoid the crash and chose not to. So I plead with you, choose wisely. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the service that you've provided our community.
Thank you. Oh, here it is. Sorry. Alicia Davis.
Madam Chair, I'd like to donate my time to Todd Grantham, if possible.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to donate my time to Todd Grantham, if he's put in a card. That's it.
He has,
Okay,
Then
then
I'll
I'll,
fill a card in.
that's fine. Then you can pass on me tonight.
Is he here?
He's on his way.
Yes, I'm here, I was late getting here, but I'll put a card in if I have to, and then take the time from them if I can. I'll fill out a card.
While he does that, why don't we hear from Richard Matthew?
Evening, Commissioners. Richard Matthew, 225 Winter Road, Treasure Island. And I spoke a couple months ago about leadership, and my background is serving in submarine force. And then I served 10 years teaching high school. So I have a lot of combat experience, mainly from high school. One thing that strikes me about this report, and I read through it several times, is the overwhelming lack of confidence and trust. That is something that once it's gone, you read the paper all the time about commanding officers of submarines, surface ships, aircraft carriers, air squadrons. Loss of confidence and trust, they're removed, because once it's gone, it's gone. And these guys are dealing with a very dangerous situation. This isn't a high school, it's not working at Google, this is life or death. And you need to believe in your leader, 100%, without a doubt. So the findings of 90% don't trust the chief, that's very, very disconcerting. Also, supporting your personnel is not a bad thing, and especially in this environment. So while the assistant chief's being accused of being too hands-on with personnel, that is a great thing. There's a de jure leader, de facto leader, sometimes they're the same. The de jure is appointed, the de facto is the leader in charge, in fact. And it sounds like the assistant chief is the leader in fact, that's who the guys will go to. The chief is the de jure, the appointed chief. Now I read through some of the recommendations. There has to be, if all are retained, there's got to be some way of monitoring who's actually running things. There cannot be that animosity. Another thing that I found really concerning is I'm a weapons guy by trade. The police chief had, or the fire chief, excuse me, had a weapon in his vehicle. Is that issued by the county? Because every law enforcement in the state gets issued their weapon. Their ammunition is issued so they can track it by lot number in case there's a failure. What's his training? What's his annual training? Are you guys willing to take on the liability? If that gun discharged and hits a child or another member or somebody he's responded to, are you willing to take that? Did you give him authorization? I know the SOP was changed to allow him, but I believe, and I didn't have time to research Florida statute, he is not authorized to carry that. So that is something that is huge. That could take everybody down. One more second, please. Storage in a vehicle. If he responds to a fire and it's at a school or something, where's that weapon being stored? In a police cruiser, there's secure stowage. If he's operating as a civilian with an open carry, we just changed the law. He cannot go onto school properties, church properties, this building with that firearm as a civilian. And he is not a licensed law enforcement officer. All right, I know my time's up.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comment. Todd Grantham? But she already said she was doing. So you have six minutes.
Good evening, Commissioner. Again, I'm Todd Grantham, District Chief with Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue. I've been with this department for 30 years since I started. I was 24 years full-time. I was a lieutenant for 17 and promoted a couple of years back to District Chief. Again, here standing for the chief. He's one of the best chiefs that we've had. I'm not even going to get into Mr. Burton. He's not even worth the time to even speak to. We'll move forward from that, and Chief Davison is solid as can be, along with Chief Stoneberg and Chief Swab. I've worked with them. Chief Swab grew up in this department. His father was a district chief in the department when he passed away. I read some of the report and saw some of it with nothing but opinions based that the people aren't qualified. That's coming from blue shirts who aren't even qualified for lieutenant. We're having to put out and go outside because we don't have enough lieutenants who are even qualified. And then those personal opinions are coming from individuals who are lieutenants who aren't even qualified to be district chief. There's probably only one, maybe two of the guys that are qualified to be promoted to district chief. Chief Davison has done more for this department in the past 2.5, 3 years that he's been as appointed by the chief. He is fair. He lives up to what they teach you in the classes as far as being an officer, which is integrity, fairness, and equal across the board when he does something. Yes, he's had to make some strong decisions on termination and firing some people. A few people resigned on their own, but the opinions coming from the individuals, and like I stated before, this union has already pointed themselves out as liars. They turned in a letter stating 95%. 2 weeks later, a week and a half later, they sent out an email to us to go to a union meeting, and the only people that knew about it were the E-board and maybe a couple other individuals. So right there, that shows you that they've pointed themselves out as liars. We need to move forward from this, but there's other things that have been done by the other individual who is not at the department right now, who has been off, that there's a lot of other information that isn't available right now or is available to the chief. There needs to be something done in reference to that, and I trusted that individual, and I feel he broke my trust, let alone he's going to cause severe damage to PSFRD across the board. It's not to the chief. It'll end up being to the chief, but it's covering across the board. I don't feel that is fair at all. This chief has not been unfair with anything. The guys just didn't they didn't like the negotiations is where everything took off and went down a bad street. I understand he's taking away or exchanging the days for time is what we changed on the first one. We got a 12.5% pay raise, and we exchanged out 4 days, and we also exchanged out the days that were holiday time that we got paid for. Now the department is paying overtime for the holidays at 12 hours for 13 holidays that we get paid through the year. Before, everyone got 12 hours off to take the time off. Whether you worked it or not, you got the time off. It wasn't sustainable. Chief's been handed this, whether the previous boards or previous administrations negotiated in bad faith. I don't feel they did. They gave us time, which is all that they could give us at that time. And now he's in discussions and wanted to negotiate and go back on our days and exchange that out again for a big pay raise. He was offering a lot of money to move ours out from 7 to 14 days to where we would get about half of the time off, but it was along with a big pay raise. Individuals are leaving and applying at Madeira Beach. They don't have our days. I'm sure their trade policy isn't even close to ours. You're reducing your amount of promotional process because they only have 12 or 13 guys that even work at that department. So to me, you're lowering your standards going down here. We could have stood here, they could have taken the pay raise and exchanged the days out and still had 8 or 9 R days a year, depending on how it falls upon the calendar year. I feel that those are big things, and again, Chief Schwab, Chief Stoneberg, I've worked beside them on the rig. They've always been solid. They always want to do what's fair within the best interest of the department. And I feel that Chief Davison is the same. We've been here, we're listening, nothing fits this E-board's little agenda that they're trying to take the chief out, so they're just trying to smear him and make him look bad, which I again stated was pathetic And I think it is disgusting what he did, and then you can go ahead and throw incompetence on top of it with Chief Hott or the E-Board, who can't even follow the proper, our contract that we negotiated with this department, they can't even follow that to save someone's job that was terminated a few months back. I forget the exact date, but they can't even follow their own contract. So that's who you want speaking, and then we have everybody up here that has been speaking, all the wives. Where do you think it's coming from? I know where it's coming from. It's coming from the husband, Matt Zeiner, the husband, Greg Hott. That's who's up here. You don't have the guts to come up here and speak. You want your wives to come up here and talk for you? That to me is just pretty sad, if you ask me. I'm up here to voice my opinion, and I move forward with things, and that's unfair that they're going to make that statement and do that. My time's up.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any other cards.
No, no, I- so now we're
So now you're
addressing 24-44 investigative report on agenda items 24 through 26, 24 through 27, 24 through 30, independent investigator. And I turn it to
So, this is the point in the meeting when Mr. Collins can come forward. If you all recall, he agreed to come back and provide, you guys had asked him to provide a supplement to his report. He was able to get that out today. I just got a little bit here a little afternoon, but I think everybody has at least a copy with them. And so much like last time, Mr. Collins, if you could address the board with the content of your supplement, and then if any of the commissioners have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. Good evening, Chair and Commission or Board. As I indicated last time, I really wanted to sort of circle back on the fact-finding and address what I call supplemental issues. And I thought a lot about sort of how to frame this, how to present it. I was a little concerned about some of the allegations that I did get from some of the members. And the reason why is there are actually two laws that this board has to ensure that you comply with, as well as myself. One is the Firefighter Bill of Rights, and two, there's an exemption in Chapter 119 for employee misconduct allegations. And so what 119 says is that if there are allegations against, or filed by someone against not a city, but a public employee, those allegations and the information are temporarily confidential and exempt until there are findings relating to those matters. And so when some of the union members presented, I don't even know if they're union members, some of the line employees presented allegations to me, I had to ensure that I'm not putting things into the public record that should be at least confidential and exempt until those matters are reviewed. And so when I thought about how to present this, what I did omit from this report are some of those allegations which, in my opinion, are confidential and exempt until someone reviews them and issues findings of facts. Moreover, Chief Schwab, all the chiefs, and Chief Davidson, they are covered by the Firefighter Bill of Rights, and there are also procedures in place and confidentiality provisions that must be adhered to before I put things into the public record. And the only reason why I put things into the public record the first go around is because it was already out there. And so to me, that exemption really did not exist because it was already made public. So I had no issue with issuing the first report. The second report, I didn't have that same luxury. And so some of the things that were told to me, I won't say any of that were particularly earth-shattering, but in the aggregate, there were allegations made against Chief Schwab, Chief Davidson, Chief Raish, and Chief Schwab. Again, by various members alleging just a variety of things. And so that's not in the report. What's in the report are what I call, I don't want to sort of minimize it, I call it miscellaneous issues, but things that have come up that I did believe the board should at least review. And so I wanted to really keep it tight and concise and not really give you another 15 to 20 page report, give you something relatively short to look at, and you can just take a look at some of the issues that I've looked at and evaluated. And when you sort of look at sort of the ultimate conclusion of it, as I think some of the, I guess, members of the public said, there's certainly an issue of distrust across the board. I wouldn't say it's borders on paranoia, but people are concerned about reprisal. They are concerned about their jobs. Some people didn't even tell me everything that they wanted to tell me because of this concern. And so I wanted the report to at least convey that there are some serious trust issues. I also wanted to address some of the allegations made against Chief Carpenez. I think the biggest issue, that sort of the first thing I tackled, really had to do with his role in this union complaint sort of coming to fruition. I was provided evidence that yes, he did play some role in preparing that initial union complaint. And as I indicated, as much as the chief may have concerns about that, that's actually protected conduct. He can do that. Certainly, there are limits to that, as I indicated. If it's objectionable, intemperate remarks, things like that, that would make him lose protection, then of course, we would sort of go down a different path. But so yeah, I wanted to address that from the outset as far as A.C. Carpenez's conduct. As far as Chief Davidson, again, there were a number of allegations made against him. Like I said, some of that is not in the report, some of that is in the report. And I really tried to sort of thread the needle here and not sort of sustain charges. I don't think that is my role, at least with respect to the supplemental report. It's really to just advise the board that there are other issues out there. In addition, I was reached out by a couple of non-employees making a number of allegations against, I'll just say, members of the district, and those complaints did not make its way into the report. I think a lot of it's off-duty conduct or alleged off-duty conduct, and I really didn't want to sensationalize anything here. But if those individuals want to come forward and file a written complaint, they can do that, and then you would either retain someone like me or do something else in order to investigate it. So I really hope at least the supplemental report at least gives you somewhat of a macro view of what's going on. And to me, yes, I think the primary issue really has to do with a loss of trust when it came to promises and statements made by the administration. I think a lot of members felt, I wouldn't say lied to, but misled. And, when you combine that with some of the other issues that they've raised, I really think you have an issue here. But it's not my job to sort of put my finger on the scale and tell you what you need to do. But of course, I've been practicing for a long time. I do this all the time. And of course, I can provide advice if you need it. But at the end of the day, of course, what needs to be done is ultimately up to you. And I don't really want to steer you one way or another. But in the event that you want to go one direction, which is retaining everyone, I did give you a pathway in the first report. And I made some recommendations in the second report that hopefully will assist. So that's really all I have when it comes to the supplemental report. And like I said, it could have looked a lot different, but I don't think I have the authority under state law to really unload a bunch of allegations unless you direct me to conduct an internal affairs investigation, and then it would be done that way. So that's all I have, board. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Any questions?
I have one. In the last session, you talked about one possible outcome here could possibly be like a performance improvement plan, and you had conducted that previously in other police departments and other agencies. If this board were to look at that plan as one of the potential outcomes here, how exactly would that play? The second part of the question would be, you made some recommendations on who should negotiate and what the relationship between potential personnel should be. If that plan were put in place, what type of success would that have based on some of the personality issues that we may have here? Would this group be able to come back together, even in that plan, to work cohesively and achieve the objectives for this district?
Okay, so the first question, as far as what we call a performance improvement plan or PIP, as I indicated, I've done this several times in other agencies, and how it generally would work is the board, the commission, they would designate someone as sort of a liaison or a point of contact, and I would work with that one person, whether it's the chair or someone else, and we would develop essentially a plan of action. It's typically between 7 to 10 pages of deficiencies and timetables for addressing those deficiencies. And typically it's every 30 days, the board would go over what's, how's progress going, 30, 60, 90, at the end of the 90 days. Some people do it longer, some people, no one does it less than that, but some do it at least 6 months. But 90 days, every 30 days, you would talk about it as an agenda item, and at the end of the 90 days, you would sort of see how he has fared. And if he fares well, you may discontinue the performance improvement plan, or if he's struggling, then you may, of course, you can extend it, or if he's failing miserably, of course, you have other options. So that's generally how it would work. I have some templates that, I would, of course, give to the board to use. As far as I call it a reorganization, but just some recommendations for making sure that these personalities can continue to mesh. I do believe that if you remove Chief Davidson from the bargaining table, I think that would be a great help. In my travels, this happens a lot, especially smaller agencies. You have the chief, usually a police chief. I deal a lot with police chiefs. They get embroiled in some issue regarding wages, and in those cases, they're speaking for the city manager, but nevertheless, the employees feel a certain way about certain bargaining positions, and it just doesn't end well, typically. And so I think that would be a big part of, at least if you want to go that route, at least mending some of these hard feelings. What we generally do is that we would have a member of the administration for operational issues at the table. But typically it'd be a third party who would conduct the negotiations. They're a disinterested party. They have their direction from you at a confidential shade meeting, and they know what to do, and they'll present proposals and no hard feelings. They come and go, and that's how it would work. But as far as your second question, yes, I do think Chief Carpenez and Chief Stoneberg in particular have a real issue. But speaking of Chief Carpenez, he has indicated he's willing to work it out, so to speak. So I do think that in the interim, while they go through team building or whatever training you mandate, I do think they should work together. But ultimately, I think that's a temporary thing. Ultimately, you have to service the residents, so whatever works best, that's what you have to do. But I do think in the interim, you should make some changes while they work out their differences.
I know we just.
I don't think it works.
I don't. There it is.
There were 9 of us.
So I was reviewing this, we just got the office, and obviously you put a lot of work into it and did your best to, I won't say protect the district as a whole for the image, but really concentrate on what the most dramatic issues are in this. One of them being the open container issue that you put in here. Obviously, that is a violation of law. That is true. Would be a violation of law, SOPs, ethics issues, liability issues for the district. whoever knows what else. It says it needs to be more of a work. Is that something you could do? Or, because to me, that's one of the main, I understand a lot of this other stuff, I think this may be a little bit separate, just as it is a direct violation if it were to be true, and it's something due to the liability that it poses to the district, should be looked into. Misusage of district resources is something that needs to be addressed if it's true. How would we go about that?
Yes, we would adhere to the firefighter bill of rights, and we would do a formal investigation. The subject would be entitled to a representative, and he would be questioned, and any other witnesses, and you would just assess the credibility of the witnesses, and however the evidence shakes out, that's how it would shake out. And the reason why I kind of just said it merits review, and I didn't really say too much, I mean, I'm certainly not here to rustle up more work here. So anyone can do it, any capable labor attorney can do that. But yes, if that's an issue, and that's why I put that in there, because that has come up more than once in my interviews. I listened to 60 hours of interviews again while I'm doing stuff around the house, and just sort of listening and just making sure I have everything, and that kept on coming up. So it's something I wanted to put in the report for whatever it's worth.
Are you, can I ask a question? Are you speaking of the open container by his passenger in the car?
Right.
Okay.
But I believe under Florida law, like the passenger in the car, the driver is still responsible as well.
And question for you, because this isn't your first rodeo and you've dealt with other agencies. Have you encountered a scenario where you've got both parties saying one thing and doing another? And what I mean by that is, if someone's if there's a plan that's implemented, every 30 days there's a check or whatever, but one side's not cooperating and the other side's not cooperating. The other side's trying, but the other side's not cooperating. What, if any, suggestions would you have to try to encourage the cooperation? Because sometimes the failure to cooperate would get you the outcome you wanted anyway, so you can just be difficult and get there. Do you see what I'm saying? Like two kids pouting in the corner, and they're not willing to come together in the hopes that the other one fails.
Yeah, I mean, this comes up fairly often, so if you have other parties sort of trying to stymie the improvement or what have you, we've actually cited employees for policy violations. A failure to cooperate, there are certain catch-all provisions in the district's SOPs that would actually fit. And so yes, if someone was just recalcitrant and really just, they want this thing to fail, yes, if there's proof that there's intent behind that, that's a potential policy violation, and we would actually, I wouldn't say go after the person, but at least put them on notice that that violates policy X, Y, and Z, and you can be written up. So.
Other questions?
Thank you for your detailed report.
And for the
appreciate it. And coming back.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Sure, and as I indicated, as part of, retention of the firm and me, any sort of post, again, if you're gonna go that other route, that will be part of sort of the fees, so to speak. So I'm not trying to nickel and dime the agency, so yes, PIPs, I have templates. I think that's part of this whole investigative thing that I'm doing. So, so if you need me, I'm here, and it really wouldn't cost you unless it's an inordinate amount of hours, but I don't think it will be. I think if you need me here and there to help draft things, I will be there, and I'll make sure to see it through. So.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
So before you go, though, I have a little bit of information, or I'm going to pose it in the form of a question, and then that may cause somebody else to have other questions with these. So I was able to speak late this afternoon with the labor attorney, Mr. Gonzalez, and have confirmed, at least as much as I can, that he was in the process of reaching out to Mr. Perkinen's legal counsel to so that the chief could put in motion bringing Assistant Chief Perkins back to active duty as soon as possible. But I didn't want that to happen until the labor attorney had an opportunity, and you had an opportunity to get this supplemental report in case anything might change there. So it's my understanding that, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to, our attorney talked to Mr. Perkins' attorney, but it's my understanding he'll be back to work shortly, and maybe the chief could spread some information on that. And I don't know if that impacts anything you've told the board at this time. I know it fits in with what you had in that sort of original report.
Well, I certainly think that the primary reason why he was out on leave is because of the complaint. That complaint has been resolved. I do think that there's a residual issue of can he work with some of the chiefs. And I would recommend that even if he's brought back, that perhaps the chief thinks about some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, reorganizing, reassigning, such that, you're not marginalizing anyone or making them feel as if, now you're a lowly X, Y, and Z, but they still have the general duties. But in the interim, while the board thinks about sort of how to sort of address this issue just holistically, that he have a different position. And again, I don't want to, I know the chief is like, it's my department and I should do whatever I want, but that is my recommendation. I think it's best, I think it's even in the chief's best interest to think about having either Chief Stoneberg and Carpenter sort of have some alternate role in the interim period. But yes, he should be back.
That's all. I do have one other announcement, and that is something that Mr. Collins and I talked to just pragmatically. He's got a flight to catch, so if there are more.
Hopefully it's from Tampa.
Yes.
At least this time it's not driving 4 hours each direction, so if you guys are okay, my recommendation would be that we let Mr. Collins go, and if we have to call him back, we'll have to do that another time.
Thank you for your time. Happy holidays.
Thank you, you too, and as I said, I'm here as a resource, and whatever you need, whatever route you go, I will speak to Mr. Alvinson, and whatever you need, I'll assist. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Do you have any suggestions about what he is telling us?
This discussion or motion?
Yeah, discussion or motion about replacing Chief Davison as the chief negotiator, having the labor attorney serve as an advisory role regarding all disciplinary and promotional decisions.
Actually, let me jump in on that, because, and I'm not sure that Mr. Collins was aware of this, but there's never a termination action that I'm aware of, no matter what the chief was, that took place solely on the chief's own whim on every occasion, and certainly the ones that were addressed in these reports. Mr. Gonzalez was apprised of all of the facts and weighed in completely, and the action taken were consistent with what I would say was his legal advice. And I'm not passing it off to the extent that I had legal opinions that was consistent with Mr. Gonzalez's and the actions were taken.
I think the chief, you contact Gonzalez
Yes,
with all these issues, right?
yes, ma'am.
I need to.
Did you want me to tell?
If you want to question them, otherwise.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, in reading Milton's report, I did take everything seriously. I started writing out a plan. I do have some discussion, some of the things he put today in his supplemental as far as a suggestion. I already was writing that out to separate the duties between Chief Snowbird and Chief Carbones. I've already started working on a conflict resolution person for those two to be able to sit down and get some training to bring, maybe bring some conflict resolution. Some of the other things I mapped out a plan, just need a little bit of time to implement that.
Questions?
You mentioned a moment ago that Assistant Chief Carbones would be returning to duty. Do you have some additional comments or shed light on that?
I do. I know it's not on the agenda, but if you would afford me just a few minutes to talk, and
I would just
explain
like to
things.
understand that comments that were made,
Absolutely.
not fully understand
Absolutely.
the statuses.
Sure. Give me my notes, please. So, if I could, just a couple of minutes to backtrack a little bit. I want to talk about a couple of things. People get to come up here and make public comment, and they can say pretty much whatever they want without any education or facts, and they just want to say when they hear a portion of it. And the attacks that have been carried out on me and my family for months now, been abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, and they still continue to this day. And I have to just listen to it. I was here last week and I see Dave's family, and of course I say hello. And his father-in-law says to me in front of my family, and excuse my language, but don't talk to me, you piece of shit. In front of my family. The same member accosted my wife in September's meeting, and some of the statements that are made are just, what human being talks to another human being like that? Just last year, things were said about myself. He's raised morale within the rank and file, established a higher standard. He values being able to provide a safer work environment for rank and file staff. He provides leadership, mentorship, and a succession plan. This has been the first time in over 20 years that this has happened. He's made history and accomplished what no other previous fire chief was able to accomplish. He provides much needed security for the rank and file staff, including mentoring, monitoring needs, job security, and family, establish positive relationships. This was written less than a year ago by Dave Carbones and sent to the board. I don't know what happened. I know what happened. Negotiations. Ever since then, things went south. Sorry, just give me a minute to gather myself. I was hired here as a fire chief after a nationwide search. And before negotiations, I was the best thing since sliced bread. And Dave says all those things about me, and the membership was behind that. And I'll tell you, whether I'm here or not, there is no credible fire chief that's going to come to this organization and give the union everything that they ask for during negotiations. It's just not financially possible right now, right? The proposals that we got would have bankrupted the district. But we did offer the highest starting salary in the county, and other things would come over time. So I can see how there's people that aren't fans of mine. right? But those of you who are parents, I tell you, you've been told by your kids how dumb you are or how they hate you. And then when they get older, they realize you were doing all the things in their best interest as they mature and learn some things. You know, even Chief Burton that was up here in his negotiations prior to me, which is public record, he let the E-Board at that time know the only way to get the salary to where it needs to be is we're gonna have to give back some time. And that's what I was working on. You know, for those of you who are where you are in life today, like, you know, you didn't get a house and 4 kids and a dog and a boat and vacation and all these things all in your first year, right? You don't have everything you have now in your first year. Because you planned and you saved and you strategized and eventually you got to where you are now. And this organization, they're gonna have the best of everything. We started with the wages that were offered and the other things are gonna, you know, come over time. You know, Commissioner, you mentioned about being able to work together, and I'll tell you that I asked the union to sit down many times to go over some policy changes. I invited them just in October. Please give me dates that we can sit down and negotiate. I would like to give them a wage increase, but that has to be negotiated, but something to hold them over between now and the full negotiation, which this contract ends. I offered a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, knowing that the starting salary wasn't high enough. We need to be there to raise 6 of the firefighters that are in step 1 and step 2 up to step 4 until we can get to full negotiations. And the E-Board told me they weren't interested. They said they weren't interested until you can do something for everybody. So I said, well, give me some dates we can go to negotiations, because that has to be publicly advertised. They haven't done it. I reached out to them just last week, say, how can we start, you know, sit down, start mending some fences? They said, they'll get back to me. I'm making every effort that I can. You know, I've had an outstanding 37-year career. I've commanded scenes that have been on international news, saved countless lives. Nobody can dispute that one bit. You won't find anything in my personnel file that says anything different. You know, I've been a firefighter, I've been a driver, a lieutenant, a captain, a battalion chief, division chief, EMS chief, training chief, emergency manager, deputy fire chief, and 7 years as fire chief now. When I took this job at Pinellas Suncoast, I knew we were set to be bankrupt in 2027, and I left another fire chief's job. I didn't need to leave, could have stayed there, but this district, I felt I could bring value to, because we were set to be bankrupt in 2027. And since then, working together with the E-Board that was in place at the time, we worked hard together to gather the membership and pass that referendum. We put in the proper funding mechanism. Since then, I've secured over $4 million from the county. We've increased our EMS funding to normal levels. Right now, we secured $1 million from the state already. And you approved last week that it can go back this year for more money for Station 27. We're going to add a 4th fire station. It's going to properly serve the citizens we protect. And we added, for the first time ever, an ALS transport capable rescue unit. That's going to be paid for by the county. And those things together with the new station, it's going to have advancement opportunities, and we're going to hire more personnel. In Mr. Collins' report, on page 15 of his report, he references that I provided documentary evidence of ancillary issues. I have a copy of all that, which is going to be, or is public record, or should be public record. That'll explain so many things as to what's been going on, and everything that I told you in our September 17th meeting, of all the things that were going on are factual. Nothing I said was hearsay. Nothing I said was not backed by documentation or evidence or fact. And I'm telling you, you can see and read through this, you'll understand everything. Because the attacks that Sorry. I'm still here because I love this district. The attacks that I've been through, let me tell you just briefly. All you hear about in the news and from some of the defaming statements that are still made today about, oh, the chief was brandishing a firearm. That's not even close to what happened. Not even close. And that alleged incident, July 9th, right? Well, Chief Carpenez had a list of his concerns that were typed out July 11th. I sure wasn't on there. They sent a complaint to the commission, I guess, was crafted by Chief Carpenez and Greg Hott and went back and forth for 3 weeks before it got sent to you when I was on vacation. No mention of a gun in there either, right? And when I tell my team everything's gonna be okay, my administrative team, everything's gonna be okay, we'll get through this. Just keep working hard. And Dave goes and files a whistleblower complaint, which even Mr. Collins states in his report that it appears to be the defensive tactic. You know, he makes that complaint, and then even after the sheriff's office comes out, everything's investigated, they still want to slander me. They still want to defame me and say, if you actually knew what I was doing for an employee, and his wife will tell you, if she wants to, how thankful she is that I helped her husband. And I've done that for a lot of employees here. You know, things have been said, I want to save you some money, you talked about other things, open container, never happened. First off, I don't even drink, but nobody's ever been inside my truck like that. Talk about inappropriate use of the vehicle, right? I save you some money right now. You know what's been said, I hear it all the time. Keyless Iron made a comment the other day that was so inappropriate. Some people can't control what they say, right? I use my work truck for towing my camper around. That was said many times. And we own our own vehicles, we own our own trucks. But I'll tell you, it was my wife that said it when it got brought up, because when her F-350 was in the shop, the only time it got moved without our truck was Chief Schwab's personal truck. I said, man, why are they saying these things? And my wife said, that's a new truck. It tracks the tow miles. And sure enough, what for everybody, but it's right here. Distance, 0. I have a copy for everybody, but just save you some more wasted time. Tracks the tow miles, and there's 0 miles, not 5 feet. I wouldn't do that. That's unethical, and it's immoral. I wouldn't do that. As far as the comments that were made, just hearing about Chief Carpenez wanting to work things out and let water be under the bridge. That's what he said to the sheriff. Yet he continued. We spent about $20,000 in public records requests. And just this weekend, more public records requests from Dave Carpenez, and that's his right. He can do that. But he wants to see things on me. He wants to see things on Chief Stoneberg. So I don't see how he wants to work it out. You encourage cooperation. I've been trying since the impasse meeting. Jeff alluded to, pretty sure I've only terminated one employee here. And that was done by the book with extensive legal counsel from our labor attorney. I don't make these decisions. I wouldn't put the district into a decision that could come back and have the district be hurt. And so I do everything, the labor attorney, so I do everything is documented. And that's also a big part of this. And you'll see, I'm happy to provide all that documentation for you, if anybody would like a copy. As far as your question, sir, if you could repeat your question, Commissioner Bowley.
Yeah, it was mentioned up here a few months, and I appreciate you taking a moment to defend yourself. I certainly recognize you had an illustrious career, as have many other members in the audience in your battalion and so forth. Is a decision been made with the labor attorney and Assistant Chief Carmenel's attorney to return to duty? Was mentioned, or is that being negotiated? Was it mentioned that Chief Davidson may have some information or update on that, is what I thought I heard, so I was trying to clarify that.
I can answer that. There's nothing to negotiate. Chief Cardenas has not been subject to any discipline. It's simply been, as Mr. Collins explained at our previous meeting, I believe he did.
He did, yes.
It's not a disciplinary move. It was a move to respond to the allegation of the creation of a hostile work environment. And now that that's been cleared up, he'll be able to come back to work. I just wanted to make sure that rather than go through any back channels, that Mr. Gonzalez, who had some contact with, and I forget his name now, the attorney for Mr. Cardenas, that he just reach out and say, hey, Chief Davidson will be contacting Mr. Cardenas to have him come back to work. So there's nothing, there's no negotiations, there's nothing to work out, there's nothing other than.
What's his effective date to return to active duty? That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah,
You said he may have some information on it.
I do. So as Jeff alluded to, that yes, Dave was put on paid administrative leave because of hostile work environment complaint was made, and although.
the question is, when's he coming back to work?
I'm gonna get there, sir.
Okay.
So Dave can come back to work based on the findings of the hostile work environment complaint whenever he likes. So my suggestion is, next week is holidays. Maybe wait till, let Dave decide what day after Christmas, whatever suits his family. He's been on paid leave this whole time. So can I just say, so that's whatever Dave and his attorney decide, but I just have to say, my employment contract says that the fire chief is the final decision maker to all personnel matters, including hiring, firing, promotion, demotion, duty assignments, discipline, and non-union salaries. A lot of things that were allegedly complained about. Like I said many times, I don't make any of these decisions without counsel from our labor attorney, but I have to be allowed to do the job you hired me for. I have to be allowed to run this department without interference and investigate the findings of potential wrongdoings at some point to determine if at some point disciplinary action is warranted. As Mr. Collins pointed out on page 12, my actions will be scrutinized due to the timing of the complaint so that the fire chief has been advised to ensure his claims are supported by evidence. No one is immune from accountability, but it must be adjudicated fairly. It's on page 12 of Mr. Collins' report. So I've been advised by our labor council that these are things that must be looked at in the future and will be looked at in the future. But the first thing to do is to comply with the direction of the board. And if it is the direction of the board to bring him back to work, that's what we'll do.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
There are indications that Assistant Chief Cardenas was actively working with you. Do you have a job description for him?
Yes, ma'am.
What does it say about confidentiality?
It says, let me just reference the proper part article. Under Article 6, duties and responsibilities. One of the things that it says, the assistant chief position appointed by the fire chief. And Dave was, for the record, Dave was selected in the same process that Chief Stoneberg and Chief Schwab were part of. And he serves at the sole discretion of the fire chief in the planning, directing, managing, and thereon. Subsection S, as in Sierra, serves as a member of the fire chief's command staff and maintains a confidential relationship with the fire chief, other chief officers, and the finance director related to appropriated departmental business. It's pretty big, it's pretty lengthy.
What impact do you believe his return will make on the administration?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna give you my honest opinion. And if you all want to fire me, you can fire me. In fact, I'll just turn in my resignation, no problem.
Please do.
But I was hired here to do a job. I know if you did a survey, probably be all but one. The administrative team, to include the district chiefs, that don't want to work with Dave, or can't work with Dave. He's undermined the district, he's undermined the authority, he's lost trust of everybody that he works with. Trying to be able to bring him back and separate him from Chief Stoneberg, and that would be reassigning operations in EMS. His job is reimbursed from the county from EMS. So we put him over EMS. Some of the issues that were addressed from the district chiefs would continue to let Lou Stoneberg run operations, and that would alleviate some issues. I don't think things are going to stop, as evidenced by the public rescue request that came in this weekend. And like I said, that's just absolutely his right. But you know, I hear a voice in the background.
Can I just say something? I'm sorry.
No.
He's got the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
For 20 minutes?
Yeah, it's probably going to be about a few more minutes longer. Okay. And, you know, things that have happened, that continue to happen. I know it wasn't brought out publicly, but these things about the alcohol and misuse of my vehicle, that I spoke too long at a public meeting, longer than the public was entitled to. They filed a complaint with the state already. And it was dismissed last week for lack of legal basis, is what the determination was. But it's not going to stop. You know, like I said before, I was hired here to do a job. And, you know, you hear, want to just address that, maybe alleviate some things, you know, you heard in a meeting, same voice about how, you know, poorly her husband is treated, and that he couldn't relax on a cruise. And I just wanted to point out, because you got to tell the whole story, because that was Matt. I love Matt. And we had Hurricane Helene coming, and he had a cruise with his family that was already paid for, right? So we allowed him to have 11 days off. He didn't work before, during, or after Hurricane Helene, because we wanted to be with him, to be with his family, because we care about all the families. So to hear those statements really is shocking, and I would love to be able to sit with everybody and have a dialogue and an open door where we can talk about things and the rumors to be squashed. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I'll tell you, like I said earlier, you know, as far as the negotiations and things, we'll get there. We absolutely will get there. But they have to be willing to meet. You know.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question based on that, since, Chief, if you don't mind? Sitting here in the meetings, because, I mean, we're still on this agenda, right?
Yes.
So, it just, you know, we're talking about AC Carbonettes, and then you hear groans in the back of the room, and you made a comment about essentially not, administration really not wanting it back. So this lends itself to sort of what I see as the bigger issue here. And I listen to everyone talk week after week and make the comments, and sometimes just because you can say something, it doesn't mean you should. And I think there's just a lot of mudslinging, and I don't think every accusation needs a comment. I don't think it does. I don't think every accusation needs to be like, oh, well, here's why I disagree with that, or here's why I don't. Everyone in this department is an adult, but the leadership starts with you. And if you lose the ability to lead, you will not be leading this department. And so, in just sort of listening to the comments and hearing it all, and the Carbonettes issue, and then obviously people are distrusting, and then there's this horrific sense of retaliation, right? People are getting promoted because they, you know, all throughout this report, the perception is you're promoting your buddies, and everyone else is fearful of retaliation or being treated differently. And so then we just hear that statement about Carbonettes. How do you tell the folks and their families in this room and the ones that aren't here tonight, it's cool to come to work every day if you're not going to be retaliated against? Because the perception, my understanding from reading all this and talking to folks, is that the firefighters and the paramedics in this district really like Carbonettes. They trusted him, they considered him a mentor. And so then we just hear those comments from the administration. How does that fix anything? How does that not help to quell the fear of retaliation and some of these other things that we hear are so prevalent within the department? And if we can't fix that, how are we doing our job to this district? If, you know, we've heard that there are people that are going to walk, people that are getting jobs at Madeira Beach. I think there was someone 2 meetings ago that I believe had taken a job with Madeira Beach, right? And so if we don't have a functioning department to provide the services to this district, and we can't do anything to retain these folks that have been here week after week threatening to leave, true or not, the buck stops with you. So how do we fix that? How do we fix it?
Okay, so I'll tell you, I haven't lost the ability to lead.
Well, the sentiment in the district is otherwise, and that is my concern. And then, again, I understand there are, operating procedures, and there's, protocol that have to be dealt with employee discipline and termination and all of that. And I think there's also a component of that where it doesn't appear that it is being, the perception, I think, is that things are being hidden and done behind the scenes, and whether that's the case or not, those are all things that you're going to have to fix if you're going to continue to lead this district. So what's the plan?
Right. So I think a lot of that, when you keep saying the perception, it comes down to education. And I think me being able to meet with the personnel and being more transparent and being open is going to help a lot. We tried to do that last year where we wanted to go do station meetings and answer any questions, and but the union leadership, if you want to call it that, shut it down. No, we don't want chief going to talk to anybody. And why? Why can't I answer questions? Why can't I hear concerns, right? So I do want to start making sure that I get back out there. But I'll tell you, a lot of it is lack of education. You know, nobody's been, not one person's been retaliated against. In fact, based on the circumstance, a lot of people have been provided leniency in things that they've done. I'll tell you, I got 2 employees out here and they know who they are. They called out sick right after the hurricane, and then when I was at the store to get a new washer and dryer for Station 27, they were there doing a project, right? Did they get in trouble? No, they didn't. Or other employees that walk in my office with looks like to be tobacco in their mouths, right? They get in trouble? No, I'm not the mouth checker. That could be coffee grounds, could be whatever, but it's the perception, right? You shouldn't be doing those things, and don't do them in front of me, but that employee didn't get in trouble. And another employee that had some anger issues. He didn't get in trouble. He did initially, but I lowered that down. If he agreed to go to counseling that I paid for it, gave him the time off. And when he came back, he never even got any discipline, not one thread of discipline. Because it's case by case, because I care about the people that work here. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any other questions?
One more. It'll be quick. Just sort of, on another issue entirely, there was, in the supplemental, there was one thing that stood out to me as a concern for the whole of the district, and that is that the Helene response was perceived as a disaster. People were working without a schedule. That's a whole administrative concern of itself. What was, you know, and obviously you guys were cut off, there was the flood, I don't know, but if our response to an emergency is not good, that's a huge problem. So
I agree, but that's not the case at all. In fact, our meeting after that, I told you that the EOC operations went smoother than they've ever been since I've been here. Everything that I saw from the entire team, the entire administrative team, the district chiefs, and the men and women that were working. Now, I'll tell you, we get paid to make some hard decisions, right? And they're not always favorable. But when we make a decision as to when to bring personnel in, to make sure that they took care of their families first, to make sure they're not traveling in a storm, that they can get back home, right? We have to make a decision as to when we bring those people in, right? And things changed, so we made a decision. And some people didn't like that they worked too many hours, but they had 12-hour breaks. And I'll tell you, the complaints about that during the hurricanes were out of ignorance. And the reason I say that is the understanding, okay? We have a huge responsibility to not just the residents in our district, but we provide mutual aid where we're at. We run calls in all areas of the county. And I'll tell you, the complaints that I heard were, I already made my bed here, and now that 27th power's on, I have to go over there and remake my bed over there. Or there was a fuel crisis. Nobody could get fuel. Chief Schwab made a great decision. The ladder truck, that we're not using a ladder truck in a hurricane, right? Gets 3 miles to the gallon. Chief Schwab said, have them switch over. He told us, the operations chief, have them switch over into the engine because it gets much better fuel mileage until we can figure out this fuel issue. They don't like that. Then, I'm sorry, but we have to be responsible. What happens when we run out of fuel? And it was a county-wide issue. Then we identified how to get fuel before the county could, and Wawa said, you be here at 5:30 a.m. and you'll be the first in line. We'll save spots for you, right? So, men and women, 5:30 a.m. you need to be over at Wawa. All of us, me too, their vehicles too, to fuel up. I can't believe we have to be over there at 5 o'clock. They know we don't wake up until 7. Okay, that's what they afforded us, 5:30 in the morning. Thank you very much, Wawa, for helping us, and we'll be there. So I think it comes to education, and perhaps bringing some people we've offered many times. Come on upstairs, come do a ride-along with me, come do a ride-along with the other chiefs, do a ride-along with the district chief, find out what it is that we do on a daily basis, and get some understanding. And maybe that'll take away some of the perceptions, But perceptions to some people are their reality, but perception is not always reality.
I don't know.
Any other comments, questions for Chief?
Thank you.
Do we have any motions? Yes,
Would I be able to speak for a few minutes?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Would I be able to speak for a few minutes, just to share a perspective?
I think she wants to speak, that's all.
Did you want to speak?
Could I please for a few
Sure.
minutes?
Thank you. I've stayed relatively quiet during these meetings so far, so I would just like to take a few minutes and offer my perspective. First, while I understand the perception, it needs to be understood that this is not a union versus non-union issue. I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone other than myself, but many of us in administration are also experiencing a very toxic work environment. In my position, I gain nothing from telling you any of this. I only risk my job. But now that it's public knowledge that Chief Davidson has stated that he does not trust me, I feel like it's necessary for me to share some things. I worked for Pinellas Suncoast for over 9 years. I worked for a county fire department for 8 years before this. When I came here from my previous department, I had a letter of recommendation from my fire chief and also the union president. In my role, I've been very capable and successful in maintaining positive and healthy working relationships with both sides of the fire service. For the first time in my entire career, I'm now having significant difficulty doing that. There are many things I could talk about. Some you've read in Mr. Collins' report, some you haven't. I want to focus though on the fact that my main fear is that the board chooses to move forward with the recommended action of training and intensive team building. I do not see this as a realistic option. There are actually a multitude of reasons I believe this to be true, but I can tell you that our last team building event, a bowling event at Maple Lanes on a Saturday, began with Chief Davidson texting me about an hour beforehand to let me know that his wife, Alicia, quote, does not like me at all, and proceeded to tell me completely absurd reasons that she allegedly doesn't like me. He ended the text with, now let's go have some fun. I was confused as to why he might do this, but it was very clear to me when I pulled into the parking lot of the bowling alley and he got out of his district vehicle with a woman who was not his wife. The woman also stepped out of Chief Davidson's district vehicle with an open container of alcohol, and he proceeded to offer me alcohol out of a cooler that he had in the back of his district vehicle. At a team building event before that, Chief Davidson took us on a boat, and the day started nicely. It ended, however, with him sitting by himself on the boat for the remainder of the day on his phone. One of the division chiefs informed us that Chief Davidson was texting someone who broke a no-contact order that day, likely referring to one of the many domestic violence or stalking injunctions that he's had against him. As I would only like to speak for myself, I do feel that I have been treated differently and targeted since I spoke at the September Commission meeting. I can actually provide countless examples of this. Chief Davidson completely fabricated and pieced together a story during this investigation to make it appear that I've been doing parts of my job unethically, and now has completely removed me from processes that are typical in the normal scope of my employment. He has suggested to other employees that they cannot trust me, offered to provide employees with offices away from me, and he has spoken to other employees on multiple occasions about giving my job responsibilities away to other people. These are the same predictable patterns I've watched him go through with Chief Mordelite, Chief Higley, and Chief Carquinez as soon as he felt they did not trust him. At one point, Chief Davidson actually told myself and Finance Director Aaron Brooks that we couldn't trust anyone in the department other than him, of course. At the September 17th meeting, I spoke up because I was worried about the investigation being impeded. I do not believe these concerns to be baseless. That night, immediately following the meeting, Chief Davidson drove directly to Station 27 and went to his office. The very next morning, on September 18th, Chief Davidson contacted our IT company and instructed them to make him the sole decision maker on our account, removing me. That same night, when I was at home in bed around 10 p.m., he texted me, letting me know, since he respects my boundaries so much, that he wanted me to know that he was deleting me from social media. The irony of that statement is not lost on me. Since that day, it has been made very...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last comment.
Oh, I just said the irony of him texting me at 10 p.m. To delete me from social media because he respects my boundaries. Since that day, it has been made very clear to me that I am on Chief Davidson's bad side, and his normal followers have followed suit. He has allowed chief officers to act a certain way toward me and get away with it. Chief Davidson recently asked me to write a memo to document a negative interaction I had with the division chief, and I did, yet I never heard anything else about it. I understand why he's doing this. I understand that he cuts people out when they don't blindly follow him. I understand that he becomes threatened when people see through him and his actions. I feel that as I have become increasingly willing to challenge him on decisions, it has also become increasingly obvious that he is trying to build a fabricated case to get rid of me. On September 26th, Chief Davidson's wife Alicia reached out to me directly, confronting me about some of Chief Davidson's affairs. I had what I thought was a meaningful and productive conversation with her. During this conversation, she told me that I need to protect myself from him the best that I can. She also told me that she knows that his actions have already hurt a lot of people at this department and are going to hurt a lot more. She said that she would be willing to speak to the investigator, and she said that she hopes he resigns and gets some help. I don't know what to say about this, and I feel like it speaks for itself. I have truly been uncomfortable around Chief Davidson since he started working here, and that has only intensified over the last 3 years. I feel like I'm doing this to speak up for what's right, and I'm honestly afraid of what kind of retaliation will come next. I'm afraid because his wife told me I need to protect myself. I'm afraid because he has been allowed to wave a gun around employees in a district vehicle after giving himself undocumented permission to do so. I'm afraid of the erratic behavior. I am afraid of a lot of things. So I tell you all of this because I recognize manipulative and abusive behavior when I see it, and I'm very confident there is no amount of team building that will help this situation. Training and mentoring may be helpful for other members of our administrative staff, but as we have heard many times, Chief Davidson has 37 years of experience in the fire service. Many of those as a chief officer, so I'm unsure exactly what training is needed to act with integrity and treat people fairly with actual genuine respect. There is inherent lack of accountability and oversight in this department simply due to the nature and structure of the organization. I'm actually currently taking an HR certification class and have been speaking to colleagues in HR roles in other organizations, and the things that I have learned make it so apparent that our work environment getting to this point with such inaction and so little assistance is unacceptable. Mr. Collins told us in his experience to fix this type of problem in the fire service, the only two options are to either remove the problem or to implement training and team building. If the board chooses the latter, I hope someone can explain in very specific detail how they truly believe that team building in an organization of nearly 50 people working vastly different schedules is going to be effective, how we will find time for this level of team building, how it will rebuild genuine trust, and exactly what this team building looks like. Or is it that we are just pushing the problem further down the road than it already is? Thank you.
Motions? All right, I'm going to throw something out there for a second. I don't think there's any question that Carbonell has been clear of the hostile workplace complaint, and under those circumstances should be told that he can come back to work, which is what you said you were going to do, if I understood you. However, I am concerned about the lack of confidentiality between administration and the union. Because as I understand it, his role is to be your confidant. And the documentation I've seen does not support any of that. Anybody want to talk about this?
For some reason, didn't meet the threshold. We didn't really do anything wrong. I understand that the chief has his personal knowledge and trust, and the administrators have to work together. There's 10 people up there. They have to work together. They have to be trusted with each other. But again, the actions taken reporting this, he didn't do anything wrong. I don't know how,
You're talking about,
Carpenters.
yes.
So, I mean, I guess I'm trying to get at what we're asking here. Are we asking that he not return because the chief can't trust him? Or,
Nobody's asking anything yet.
okay, that's what
I
I'm
mean-
trying to figure out where we're going with this.
With the original complaint that caused him to be put on administrative leave,
Right.
that is clear.
Yes.
And now, I think we have to address what we're going to do next.
Okay, that's what we're getting at.
Is that all right?
Understood.
We need to just conclude the matter. We need to conclude the matter and determine what the next steps are. It's concerning that they may not be able to work together, whether we set up an improvement plan. Don't know if that'll work. Team building, I don't know if that'll work. I was concerned by the chief's comment that they won't be able to work together. So how do we put them back together? But there needs to be some plan, some conclusion to go forward. It's a small district with limited resources and big mountain objectives. We don't have time for this stuff. This is nonsense. This needs to be resolved one way or the other. We're not coming to 2 or 3 more meetings to talk about this. It's a waste of time. It needs to be resolved, in my opinion,
Do we have a motion?
at this moment.
Yes, sir.
May I put
Short, yeah.
So I don't want to offer for the district, because I think about how to put this into words, because I wrote this down, jotted things down. So, yeah, Dave was cleared from a hostile work environment complaint, but it's still hostile, right? He has the right to come back to work. But I'll tell you, he's going to be placed right back off work under investigation at the direction of the labor attorney. I'm going to tell you right now, that happens. Give me 1 second, please.
Chief, are you saying the labor attorney's going to place him?
What's that?
You say if he comes back, the labor attorney?
No, that's my job. But I'm only going to do so at the advisement of the labor attorney, right? Right now, he has the right to come back because there's no hostile work environment substantiated.
Yes.
So I'll tell you this, I'll offer this, right? If you guys vote, you don't want me to be here, or you vote, you'd like me to resign, I'll put in my resignation tonight, but I'll stay on board. I'll stay on board until you find a suitable replacement, and I'll see through the projects get handed off to who they need to get handed off. And, excuse me, and make sure that the district moves forward. We have millions and millions of dollars at stake. And there's not one person that has all the information that can take care of it all. And I'll make sure that I stay on to do that. If you'd like to vote and you'd like me to resign, I'll do that. But I'm telling you, Chief Harpez is if he's put under investigation and found that he did nothing wrong that warrants any discipline, then I'll resign on my own at the conclusion of that investigation. And I'll have an outsider do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen Carpenez?
Hi. I'm not going to say my address because my husband is Assistant Chief Carpenez. A couple of things that Chief Davidson is saying is not full truths. So you guys are getting half truths. When he's saying that my husband is doing erroneous public record requests, you guys have to understand he was put off on paid leave with no reason why initially, and then told. So now that the investigation is concluded, he had no access to his work computer. So he's had to dispute all of his claims with no emails. So he's doing public records requests now that the investigation's concluded. He never saw the hostile work complaint that Stoneberg accused him of. He's done public records requests for those things. So he's doing public records requests, yes, not maliciously, but to try to understand, like without the use of his computer, some things that he's been involved in, that he's trying to explain why. And then I guess the other issue that I have is, I know that my husband has given the information to Milton, so it will be public record, but I can tell you on 15 occasions, one in email and on multiple text messages, my husband asked Chief Davidson for help with the situation between him and Chief Stoneberg. He specifically has an email, I know it's public record, but he asked for help. He said that he was aware that there was contention between the two of them. He was asking for guidance. This was a new role for him. He was asking for guidance. And he never got that. I mean, it got to the point where he felt like he went to Davidson, he asked for help. He wasn't given guidance, and so now he's being accused of creating a hostile work environment, which he has been cleared of. So, I mean, I guess it's just like when you're asking for help from a leader who's supposed to guide you, you don't get that guidance, and then you go to the board for saying, hey, there's some stuff that's going on, you guys need to be made aware. I think I think he was not directed. He needed help. And and I can say, I can attest to some of the stuff that Kim Hampton has. I have a text message from Alicia, his wife, also stating to me in text message that she knows that my husband was feeling the pressure that he's going to be fired in the next couple months. So I have that in text message as well, that she told me to have him watch his back, because she's seen him do it to other people, and that Dave is on the list, and that once he does not trust her, that once Davidson loses your trust, he comes after you. And I have that in text message as well, and I'll be happy to provide that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion to move forward on this from any?
Well, just from the lawyer point of view, there's no motion or anything the board needs to do in regard to Assistant Chief Carpenez. He'll be returned to work, and if I understood what Chief Davidson said, because it's the holidays, so give Assistant Chief Carpenez the option or ability to choose his come back to work date. And so there's really nothing this board has to do. It's frankly not on the agenda.
Okay.
Anyway.
Should a firm date be established when he begins service?
Well, I think the firm date was he can come back to work right away, but if he has made a...
That's not a firm date, though. That's whenever he feels like it.
Well, that's fine. I'm just saying, this is my understanding.
Should there be one established, a firm date? I
don't have an issue with establishing a firm date. I'm not sure Chief Davidson has a particular date, but that's a question you guys can ask him.
Well, I did, but we went down a different road with the question. But I just was curious if the firm date should be established, yes or no? In my mind, it should be. I don't know of any organization where it wouldn't be. I might be from another planet, but that's...
Well, no, here's the answer.
That's my question.
Here's how I understand what the chief was suggesting. It's the holidays. Mr. Carpenez has been off. It may well have been that, I don't know, maybe somebody else has information, but if he hadn't been on administrative leave, he might well have asked for the holiday time off. So I think that's probably what the chief was getting at, that he'd come back to work right away. But if there's an issue with that, then to allow him to pick his own work date. If it's a specific date, I'd say that he returns to work on Monday.
I guess that's what, if there's any resolution.
But I can't, I'm the attorney.
I understand. I'm asking Chief Dave, I asked earlier, and he went into a different answer. So I'm just looking for a specific date, so there's some conclusion to that matter.
So
before we decide how we should regroup
Sorry.
and manage things going forward. Maybe he doesn't want to come back to work.
Exactly.
He's never here to answer. He brought his wife in.
He'll come back tomorrow if you want him to. He'll be here tomorrow if you want him to.
That'd be nice. Thank you.
So, just so that we have a smooth transition, right? Today's Thursday, right? Monday, we're open, we're off Tuesday, Wednesday, right? And then the same thing the following week. So as a suggestion, I would say, why doesn't Chief Carpenter come back to work January 2nd, right? That's only half of a week. If he chooses to, he can start back on January 6th, right? That's a Monday in a full week. Leave that up to him. I just need to know specifically what day he wants to choose to come back to work.
How will you communicate with him about that?
All he has to do is let us know. He can send an email.
Well, he's not here to know about it. I mean,
Well, so we have been communicating with him through his email. And we can let him know that, you know, whatever date he chooses, those are the dates I suggest, only because there's a couple things I have to do. I need to do some temporary restructuring to separate Chief Stonberg and Chief Carpenter's responsibilities, right? And also continue working on having a conflict resolution person to be able to speak with them and see how we can resolve some things. So those are some of the things that I have to deal with. So I would suggest that we leave it up to Chief Carpenter, either January 2nd, which is only a few more business days, or January 6th, when we start a full week, but that could be his choice. Or whatever the board suggests.
I'm good with what you're suggesting. Maybe he has plans to go out of town for Christmas. I don't
Right.
know. Anybody want to disagree with what he's suggesting?
I think it's solid.
Do we have a plan?
That's all I was just trying to understand. Is it open-ended or is there some specific?
We can send him specifics. So I'll draft an email, send it to Kim, and have Kim send it to him, saying that he's cleared and come back on the day he chooses, January 2nd or January 6th.
Does he get his company car back, computer, phone?
We're not addressing that.
Thank you.
So if that's the answer to that, then we need to come up with some solution for how the two sides work together going forward. Which some of the answers didn't sound real positive in the question and answer period there.
I got a comment. I mean, I agree. It may be foolish to think that this could be resolved in a 60-day period to implement these procedures. But we did pay probably quite a bit of money for this gentleman to do an investigation on these issues and recommendations. He didn't say fire the chief, but he gave us recommendations to work through. It may not be, optimistic that they, from what's being said, that they could be successful, but I think we need to implement some sort of a improvement plan and try to see if we can mend the fence. I don't want to see the chief lose his job. I don't want to see Parkman lose his job, but I would like to see us have some sort of chance to implement what we just hire somebody to consult with us with. And whether it's to page 12 of his investigator's report, or it's a combination of what we come up with, I think we need to implement that instead of getting rid of anybody based on the report that was solicited by us.
I would just like to say that many of the accusations from both sides aren't true. They were not founded by the investigation. And
That's not true. You just said he didn't do an internal investigation to flush those out. You said that would be an additional thing. You're incorrect. If he was going to conduct a further internal investigation.
we had
You are
open comment.
incorrect.
We had open comments.
I can fill out a card, you're just wrong.
According to the
Collins said himself.
fact-finding inquiry, we have charges not sustained, charges not sustained.
Because he did not conduct
Excuse
an
me.
internal investigation.
Out of order.
It's quite
Charges
clear.
not sustained. Sustained. Okay. Everybody makes mistakes. This chief has done a lot of
Well,
good.
we can take that as a
Excuse me,
mistake.
this chief has done a lot of good for the department and for the district.
Yeah, you clearly like.
And based on that, I was hoping for reconciliation, and I still am. He is willing to work to improve the communications. I think he's earned a right to do that. And
Really? After everything you heard.
Shall we move on to the next item?
if we're not going to be civil in this meeting, we'll just move on to the next item. I certainly understand that there's lack of trust. I understand that many of the other items were not sustained. He has agreed to give Chief Carquinez the opportunity to come back on the 2nd or the 6th.
We're right back on leave.
Please break back on me.
Please right back on leave.
It's fine.
Do we have any motions to do anything other than what we just?
I'll make a motion to implement the recommendations by the report from Attorney Collins. And if we want to talk about the bullet items they provided, and see which ones we want to incorporate, if any. But I think we need to make a decision on time frame on implementing some of these procedures to see if we can correct the animosity and the communication.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to add to that. I know I asked the question and it was brought up before about a position improvement plan. I think if we do that, it has to be done on both sides. It isn't just the chief. Both sides need to have that. Perhaps we look at it for maybe a 90-day window, each of the 30 days as was suggested. And if we come to the end of 90 days and there's no progress made and there's other issues that have occurred, I think we're going to have a different discussion and a different decision to make. And perhaps more than one person will be leaving. So that's my suggestion for the discussion into that motion.
I believe Mr. Collins said last meeting, he's able to, we can ask him, along with this motion, we're going to call these plans. He said part of that was he was going to be able to draft us a action plan to refer to. Well, and I just want to make sure that's kind of included in this. If this is what we're going to accept these, that we add in there that we're going to be using. It said it's already included, we're going to pay for it, might as well use it. Getting that action plan so we have something on paper everyone can see. We're open, transparent. This is what our plan is. This is what we want to see done. This is the steps that need to be taken. Because if not, then we're going to this is going to be a spiral. Just keep going over and over again. It's going to be a carousel of events.
We're wasting district resources over and over if we allow it to go beyond that.
Are we going, will we pay extra for that?
He said no.
I don't know if anything.
I'll get an answer on that.
He has some templates for the PIP, and we would set up guidelines and monitor those every 30 days, every meeting.
Well,
30 days.
you have a question?
I don't think it's enough. Chair, I don't think it's 30-day check-in is enough. I think if there's going to be any change and any rebuilding in trust, then people need to know that they're being watched. And kind of a poor analogy, but not. A probation officer can show up at your home on probation. They can go in without a search warrant, they can check your phone, it needs to be more on that level. At any point in time, somebody we're using district phones, we're using district computers, we're using district emails. Most of these activities and all of this ancillary information went back and forth in text messages. There's the issue with I want to fight the union folks, where those were text messages sent from district, right? So there were emails, right? There's allegations that AC Carpenez's email was accessed without. But the same needs to be true for anybody that's using department equipment, right? You're driving the department vehicle. If I see you at a light, I might follow you and see who's in your car. I live in the district, right? It's just that you're under a microscope. The department has lost faith, and you have done some good things for the department. There have been countless grants, revenue that has come in. There is, we've now got some traction in Tallahassee with the legislature. There was $1 million last year for a new station. So that is what I think Chairman was saying. You've earned that chance. That's your only chance. And I think that it's got to be, we're just coming back, here's a 30-day plan, and I absolutely understand Ms. Hampton's concerns about team building. She's probably sick to her stomach because it's going to work tomorrow, so what do we do about that? That's probably the feeling of the most of the people in this district. So that has to get better, and I don't think a 90-day time frame, I think it needs to be 60. It's got to change, or you're talking about continuing on and on. It's got to get better now, not 90 days down the road. I think 60 is a little bit better only because there's some other moving parts if we're going to employ Mr. Collins. But I think we should also put some suggestions in there. Again, I'm just talking off the cuff, some suggestions in there to make it a little bit tighter so people understand you're under a microscope. So this isn't just, here's 30 days and I'm coming back with a report. There's real fear of retaliation. Ms. Hampton just expressed concern about the fact that, it was just indicated that Mr. AC Carpenez will come back and then be put on leave again. That, whether there's an allegation there or not, it'll work itself out if there's an investigation into it. But that cannot be the fear of everybody in this department, or there's nobody showing up for work tomorrow when a fire alarm goes on. So it's whatever input we can give Mr. Collins, and I don't know how we frame that, Mr. Alvinson, to tighten up. There's just got to be more oversight.
Okay, so, let me perhaps give some perspective, and as each of you know, I know at one point that counseled everybody on board that I'm not elected, and so I try to keep my personal opinions away so it doesn't affect anybody. But I think there's now a question pending how to move this forward. I want to remind everybody that while I may work on a regular basis with Chief Davidson, he's not my client. While I may answer any of your individual questions, none of you individually are my client. My client is the district overall. That's also true of Mr. Gonzalez, who is a labor attorney. What I would suggest is that we have, I'll get in touch with Mr. Collins and Mr. Gonzalez. If this is the direction I think that your motion was going in, I'll have those two put together a PIP, personal improvement plan. I don't think there's two sides to this. Mr. Carpenez, that may be something down the road in regard to him working with Chief Stoneberg or whatever, but at this point, and we don't have any command that the union is yet another separate entity. We can't tell the union what to do or not do or anything like that. So I would put Collins and Gonzalez together, have them develop a PIP. I would think they can probably accomplish that. I'm speaking for them. I don't know their personal schedules, But if Chief Carpenez is returning on the 2nd or 6th, I'd like to have them get something in paper or on paper that would be able to be effective on the 2nd or 6th. So, you know, there's some equality there. Once there's a PIP in place, I don't disagree with Commissioner Koskinas, and I know I'm butchering it. You got it. Okay, so I don't disagree with her that a 30 or 60 or 90 day reporting period is good enough. It may, that plan may need 30, 60, 90 days to work through, but I would suggest, and this is what I'll tell them when they get together, that they need to develop a PIP that would have a, I don't know, either weekly or once every 10 days, have some form of an update. This is what's happened, so that that can then be published to the board, and it will be public record, so the public can see any of that as well. And at any time, the board can either say enough's enough, or on either direction, you know, after getting these reports, and then have a more formal report. I'd hate to ask Mr. Collins to come, but perhaps Mr. Gonzalez could come on a you know, to each meeting to answer questions, really give an update, say what's happening and what's going on. I could do it, but as I said in hiring Mr. Collins, because I work, you know, closely with the administration on other issues, you know, I don't think anyone, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a lot of the folks out there trust me in what I'm saying, that the district, the entity is my client, and I'm not beholden to any individual, so I'd rather see somebody else in that role, so that you get a written something every week or 10 days, that would just be emailed to y'all, and then each, you know, roughly 30 days each meeting, you get a more formal update, and you know, hopefully things can work out, and if they don't for one reason or another, then you may have other hard decisions to make.
Would we need some vehicle or tool in there to validate what each of these show us?
Well, that's up to
an interview, which Mr. Gonzalez could selectively interview a few people to validate.
Yeah, whatever they think. What I'm saying is, you know, Gonzalez he's older than I am, so he's got 40 years dealing with these kinds of issues, and I'm sure there's, you know, I don't know because I don't in that area of the law, and so I'm sure there's some sort of standard way that they keep up with that. I just don't know what it is. And that would be in whatever the PIP is. So if I understand your motion, then it would be to authorize me to communicate and hire Milton Collins and Tom Gonzalez to work together to put together a PIP that has minimum 10-day sort of reporting, and would be updated more formally at each meeting, each district.
You contain it for about 60 days total?
No, I think it'd be longer.
You would go 90?
I think
It's going to take a long time, I guess, just until they come up with a plan. It comes back the 2nd or 6th. That's 2 weeks between now and then. So, I think.
Yeah, well, they can tell us how long they think the plan should be, or the monitoring should continue or whatever.
That's right.
We could end the plan at any time,
You could.
based on the success, hopefully, of the plan after the first month, second month.
Almost irrelevant the length at which we're gonna look at this, other than we're gonna see spend money on it. But if we're going 90 days, so we put it at 90 days, okay, that's fine. We're still getting reporting in the middle at any point in time, if they go, listen, this ain't working out. Y'all need to make a decision. Then we can come back
Actions can be taken at any time.
Okay.
And you could do that, sorry to interrupt, you could do that either at a regular monthly meeting, or if the board feels it's necessary, like we do on other issues, you can call a special meeting if something, needs to happen between meetings.
He also did, Mr. Collins, I believe, said something about doing a shadow session prior to help develop this plan. Is that something we need to look at as well?
I don't think you have enough time for that. I think you need to,
Let's go ahead, let's get something on paper and get going.
if you need to manipulate the plan then later, if somebody doesn't like some function of it, that's something you can address later on. And I'm sorry for giving my personal opinion, I just thought it.
No, I appreciate it.
Oh, good. No, it's our plan, so if we need to tweak it going forward, we can tweak it.
So should we
Do whatever you want with it.
restate that motion now to make it official, and then we'll take the vote? Is that what?
You can adopt the motion as I restated it, if it's easier for you.
Are we doing that then?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, as Jeff stated, regarding hiring Gonzalez and Collins to come up with a personal improvement plan. And we'll see the results on a monthly basis and get our updates and make decisions going forward.
Second,
To be modified
at any time.
based on the needs and reporting, the need for more rapid reporting. I just think it needs to be more than once a month.
Well, that's what I
That's what I'm
said.
saying, if it's a weekly, 10 days, I think that was.
We're just setting up that they're gonna make a plan. We can tweak what the plan is itself.
We'll let the two of them come up with those, the teeth
Yeah.
that'll address your issue like that.
I'll say no less than every 10 days or every 15, but if they think they can do it better, let's just say no less than every 10, but if they think once a week is more appropriate, then that'll be up to them. And then like what Commissioner Kuskinas points out, if it turns out you think you're getting too many reports, you can always tweak it in that direction, or if you need more reporting, you can tweak it in that direction. Right?
All right, we have a motion and we have a second.
I don't think you have a second.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. He did.
So, shall we have a vote?
If there's no more discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. All right. 24-46, this discussion with Synovus Bank regarding financing for Station 28.
Well, this is starting the workshop. We're gonna start the workshop, so we're done.
Oh, I guess, I'm sorry, I have to adjourn this meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
That ends the regular meeting.
Now we start the regular, which is the discussion of, actually, the discussion was in the workshop too. But anyway,
I was going to ask Mike to step away for a minute, because that's more talking than I've done in a while, other than reading.
I just think it's easy.
Yeah.
I just think that.
That's
I have
7:25, return. What do you have?